2:11 a.m., the gears still moved, but the light refused to turn. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not broken, wrong. Broken is easy. A fuse, a bearing, a belt. Wrong is when the world looks like itself, but feels a size too tight. I'd been doing lighthouse maintenance 11 years by then. The charts called this place Matin Rock. A dark thumb of granite 30 miles off the main coast. A tower and a shed, and nothing living but gulls mean enough to draw blood. It was a 2-week rotation, usually solo, but we'd had intermittent rotation fault flagged twice last season. So this time they sent me with a rookie named Hale. Fresh out of school, neat haircut, still called everyone sir until I told him to stop. The first 3 days were nothing. We ran the list. Scrape salt bloom from the steel, grease the pinion, test the emergency batteries, top off diesel, check auto start, wipe the lens. The place was ordinary in the boring way I like best. Nights, we read paperbacks, ate from cans, and played cards with the wind thumbing the corners. Hale asked about storms I'd seen. I told him storms were honest. They arrive loud and leave proof. It's the quiet you learn to worry about. On the 4th night, the air felt like a storm without thunder. Heavy, charged, the kind that makes the hair on your arms stand up. I woke with my mouth dry and knew before I sat up that something was off. The slit window by my bunk should have been cutting a white sweep across the opposite wall every few seconds. It wasn't. Dark as a shut-eye, I shook Hale. We went up the spiral, boots knocking the metal like a slow clock. The drive motor hummed, the little gear turned, but the catadioptric lens sat stubborn and still. Hale popped the guard cover and leaned in with his headlamp. "Something's in the race," he said. We pulled it free with pliers, a long strip of black cloth, slick as eel, stinking of rot and brine. We both looked around like a person would be standing there to explain it. Nobody was. The lantern room door had been locked. The windows were sealed. We cut the cloth out, cleaned salt from the teeth, reset, and watched the light find its rhythm again. Sweep. Sweep. Oxygen came back into the room. "Bird got in?" Hale asked. "No bird carries a towel," I said. Morning made everything smaller. We checked the doors again, tried the windows, inspected the hatch. Sound. I wrote "foreign obstruction" in the log, and didn't look at my own handwriting. The 5th night, it happened the same way. I woke for no reason, looked at the blank wall, and felt the wrongness settle on my shoulders. We climbed. The gears moved. The light did not. This time the jam was a scarf, bright red once, now gone brown at the edges, frayed and crusted with tiny shell flecks like a pocket had spent a winter in the sea. Hale held it away from his chest. His face looked thin. "We locked this room," he said. "We did," I said. "We locked it again." We blocked the stairwell with 2 crates of spare parts. Downstairs we dragged the dresser against the bedroom door. It wasn't about keeping anything out. It was about telling ourselves we'd tried. After that, the days stretched like old rubber. We ran tasks that didn't need running just to hear normal sounds. Hale started staying by the narrow windows, watching the rocks like he was waiting for someone to wave. He'd laugh at nothing, then stop halfway through and rub his temple. That kind of change sneaks up on you because you're inside it while it happens. The footsteps came on the 7th night. Not creaks, not wind. Footsteps on the metal treads above us, slow and deliberate, as if whoever it was didn't care if we heard. They went from the lantern room to the 3rd landing, and then ended the way a sentence ends when the speaker changes their mind. Hale sat up, eyes shiny in the dark. "You hear that?" he said. "Yeah." "Should we?" "No." We waited until the waiting felt worse than moving, then we moved anyway, together, flashlights low. Nothing waited at the top but our own breath. On the 9th night, I woke to Hale whispering. He was turned toward the corner, voice low like he was answering questions. I used his name twice before he blinked, slow, and turned. "Wasn't talking," he said. His throat was dry. He slept sitting up after that, or pretended to. On the 11th night we broke. The light died again. We climbed, half out of duty and half because not looking would be worse. The lantern room door stood wide, the hinges bent out a 1/4 inch like they'd been asked too hard. The bulb, industrial heat-scarred glass you need gloves to handle, had been unscrewed and set upright on the floor as neat as a candle before church. I felt cold air pass behind my back. Not a draft, intent. I turned so fast the beam jittered. Nothing there but glass and our reflections. In Hale's, over his shoulder, for one smear of a second, I saw a shape like 4 pale fingers at the brick patch where a breach had been repaired years ago. By the time I grabbed his sleeve and swung him, there was only wall. We didn't talk. We ran. The stairs shook our legs until they felt like someone else's. We shoved the dresser back against the door and sat with our knives dumb and heavy in our hands. The wind worried the siding. Somewhere above, something small tapped 3 times and then decided against a 4th. We waited for morning like it was a ferry you can't speed up. At first light, I used the sat phone. I said, "Mechanical failure, request early pickup." I kept my voice flat. They said they'd put a boat on it and to sit tight. Tight is an odd word on an island shaped like a knife handle. Hale paced, then didn't. He stood at the window like a student before a locked door. I made us coffee that tasted like coins and told him about the time a buoy snapped its chain in a storm, and with it, a 30-foot tower went sideways into the bay. He nodded like a man in a waiting room nods at a poster. The boat came late afternoon. The swell made the bow rise and fall like a tired chest. The coxswain's face said he didn't want to be there, but would pretend otherwise for our sake. On the ladder, the deckhand caught my elbow and said, "You boys all right?" That call at 0212 was rough. What call? He looked at me like I was joking badly. Distress, static in half a sentence. He's... and then gone. From your unit. We lit out right after you cut back with the mechanical. I dug the sat phone from my pocket and thumbed the log. Outbound showed 1 call, 0611. That was all. I didn't like the way my name looked printed next to it. I didn't like the way Hale wouldn't look at anything but the water. Back on shore, the report I filed was clean and cowardly. Obstruction incidents in rotation gear. Door hardware suspect. Recommend full refit and inspection by team. Possible vandalism improbable given access constraints. The part of me that likes being believed wrote it. The part that wants to sleep at night let it pass. I watched Hale sign his name with a hand that shook like a wire. A week later, he asked for a peer unit. 2 months after that, he was gone from our sector. Nobody said the word quit. We said transfer because it gentled the edges. There's a thing old keepers used to say, the ones who lived out there before automation. If the light wants to go dark, it will find a way. I don't romanticize the job. A lens is numbers and glass. A motor is copper and teeth. Doors don't open themselves, and bulbs don't unscrew to stand politely in the middle of the floor. I know all that. I also know what the rookie's reflection showed me for that bending instant, and what the deckhand swore he heard at 2:12 a.m. with my voice wrapped in static. They asked me, months later, if I wanted to take Matin Rock again. It was said like a favor. I told them I'd take anything inside of 10 miles and in sight of other lights. The chief laughed and called me superstitious. I told him I was practical. He said that's what superstitious men call themselves when the ocean changes their mind. This part isn't in any report, but I think about it when the house is quiet and the fridge motor kicks off. The exact way the air felt on my back in that lantern room. Not a touch, permission being tested. You ask me what happened out there, and I'll give you the maintenance version because it's the one that signs clean. But it isn't the one that wakes me. Some lights just don't want to stay on. After hours at High Water Point Closed Park, empty lot, 1 lighthouse, and 3 men who didn't belong there. That's the night that sits behind my ribs like a bruise. Nothing supernatural. No ghost. Just the kind of wrong you only notice when it's too close to fix. This was during the lockdowns, when everyone was losing track of what counted as a good idea. Bars were closed, beaches empty, and every night felt like a Sunday that wouldn't end. I'd been talking to Maya online for months, one of those local connections that never happened until boredom made it sound smart. She had this quiet way of making trouble sound like art. High Water Point, she texted one night. Let's walk the cliffs. They're even better in the dark. It was about 11. I asked if it was open. She sent a smile emoji and said, "Who's gonna check?" 10 minutes later, I was parked outside her place. She slid into the passenger seat wearing a hoodie and cut-off shorts, carrying a small backpack that clinked. 2 white claws, I guessed. "You sure about this?" I asked as we pulled away. She laughed. "You're already driving, aren't you?" The road to High Water Point was black glass and moonlight. It's the kind of coastal park that looks tame during the day. Fence, picnic tables, a parking lot. But behind the lighthouse, there's a cliff walk that drops straight into the Atlantic. No railings, no crowds. In daylight, it's postcard pretty. At night, it's a place the world forgets about. The gate was chained shut. Maya didn't even slow down. "There's a side fence," she said, pointing. "Locals do it all the time." We parked by the service road and finished the drinks first. The air had that clean, metallic taste you only get near water in early spring. I remember thinking it was the first time in months I'd felt like the world might still have corners I hadn't seen. We hopped the fence and followed the sound of waves. The lighthouse beam swept slow arcs across the sky, bright enough to paint the grass silver every few seconds. Creepy, I said. Cinematic, she said. You're thinking horror, I'm thinking movie poster. We laughed. It was easy then. She walked ahead, phone light bouncing off the rocks, humming something I didn't recognize. Then, maybe 20 minutes in, she stopped. Evan, she said, not loud, just enough to pull the sound out of the night. I turned. She was pointing her flashlight back toward the trail we'd come from. Someone was there, a figure standing on the rocks, still as a photograph. Hoodie up, hands in pockets, face in shadow. Maybe a ranger, I said, even though rangers wear uniforms, not hoods. He didn't move. Hey, I called. You work here? Nothing. He just tilted his head slightly, like he was deciding something. Then he said, Y'all want to buy some Coke? That voice, it wasn't angry or desperate. Just casual, like we were at a bus stop. I said, No, we're good, and stepped back, motioning for Maya to keep moving. We turned toward the path ahead. When we started walking, he started too. Not fast, just keeping pace. Every time the beam of the lighthouse swept past, we'd catch a glimpse. Hood up, same distance behind. The path curved along the cliff, so there wasn't anywhere to run without doubling back. My heartbeat started syncing with the beam's rhythm. Flash, dark, Maya whispered. What the hell is he doing? Maybe just trying to mess with us. But I didn't believe that. There was no shout, no threat, just silence and steps. The path opened onto a flat area near the edge, where the grass turned to gravel. That's when I saw them. 2 more shapes peeling out from the side shadows near the lighthouse base. Both men. Both moving toward us slow and loose, like they'd already decided what happened next. My throat went dry. Back to the car, I said. We didn't run. Running makes things chase. We walked. Too fast to look casual, too slow to feel safe. The first guy stopped talking. I could hear one of the others call something, a single word I couldn't catch, carried away by the wind. The parking lot was a black square ahead of us. Our car sat dead center, the only vehicle for half a mile. Keys, Maya whispered. In my hand, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. We reached the asphalt. I hit unlock. The click echoed like a gunshot. We slid into the seats. I locked the doors. 2 seconds later, the handles rattled, both sides. Another hand tried the back one. Then a dull thump on the rear quarter panel. Maya gasped. Someone outside laughed, just once, low. I reversed hard, tires squealing against gravel. The 3 of them stepped back into the beam, silhouettes for a heartbeat, one raising his hand like a wave, another turning away, already bored. We drove with headlights off until the road curved inland. My hands hurt from gripping the wheel. No one followed. Maya kept looking behind us anyway, into the back seat, into the mirror, at the windows. I kept waiting for another set of headlights to show up in the mirror and didn't know which would scare me more, seeing them or not. We didn't talk until we hit the main road. Then she said, I'm sorry. For what? For thinking it'd be fun. I told her it wasn't her fault. But I also didn't say we'd go again. When I dropped her off, she kissed my cheek and tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I drove home with the windows down, like air could scrub the night out of the car. Morning made everything look smaller, safer. The sun hit the hood just right, and for a second I felt stupid about it all. Then I noticed the prints. 2 partial shoe marks smeared across the passenger door, one on the back bumper, mud mixed with sand. I wiped them off with a rag, and for a moment my hand hovered over the metal, feeling the faint warmth from the sun. I told myself that's all it was. Heat, not memory. That evening, Maya texted me. You good? I typed, yeah, and didn't send it. I stared at the screen until the typing bubble disappeared. We saw each other again a few times. Coffee, movies, normal things. We never mentioned High Water Point. But sometimes, when she got quiet, I could tell she was hearing it again too. The gravel underfoot, the silence between footsteps, the single laugh against the car. People like stories with monsters because monsters make sense. They want something they can stab or shoot or run from. But some nights, the thing waiting for you doesn't need claws. It just needs to be human enough to smile while it tries the door handle. The scariest thing that night was how human it all was. The box in the stairwell, I went out to inspect a dead lighthouse. Something there inspected me back. I'd been in structural work for 30 years. Bridges, docks, towers, you name it. The county hired me as a consultant to determine whether an old decommissioned lighthouse could be restored, or if it should finally be condemned. No big deal. A 4-day solo trip, an hour off the Washington coast, some photos, a report. I'd done worse. The boat dropped me off on a Monday morning. The captain refused to cut the engine while I unloaded. He just stared at the tower and said, "We'll be back Thursday. Radio if you need us." The lighthouse stood on a hunk of black rock, maybe 300 feet across. Just enough for the tower, a generator shed, and a strip of yellow grass. From a distance it looked fine. Up close, you could smell the truth. Rust, mildew, salt, and something older underneath it all. The paint had peeled to reveal red brick like old scabs. Inside, it was colder than outside. The spiral staircase wrapped around the wall like a rib cage, and the air felt thick. The silence wasn't normal silence. It was something heavier, the kind that eats sound instead of holding it. Still, I did what I came for. I inspected bolts, checked cracks, measured alignment. Everything looked stable enough. The upper levels were cluttered with old metal cabinets and corroded fittings. Nothing unexpected. By evening, the fog rolled in. It came fast, swallowing the ocean until even the water disappeared. I set up my sleeping bag on the ground floor, near the generator room, where it was warmest. Dinner was a can of beans and an energy bar. The foghorn on the mainland blew once, far away, and then nothing. That was day one. On day two, the fog never lifted. It pressed right against the glass, so dense you couldn't tell where the sea stopped and the air began. The world ended 3 feet from the window. Around noon, I climbed the stairwell to recheck the beams. Halfway up, I saw something odd. A small maintenance closet built into the wall. I'd noticed it the day before, but it had been fused shut with rust. Now the door stood open an inch. Moisture can make metal expand, I told myself. That was all. I nudged it wider with my boot. The inside smelled like pond water, stale and sweet and wrong. A wooden box sat in the back corner, about the size of a lunch pail, covered in green moss and slimy streaks, like it had been sitting underwater. It looked out of place, too cleanly shaped, too intentional. I leaned in and tapped it with my penlight, hollow, heavy, nailed shut. I didn't open it. I just noted it for the report. Unidentified stored item, stairwell closet, non-structural. Then I closed the door and went back to measuring. That night, I woke up to silence. You think silence is nothing? But when you've been in the field long enough, you know its texture. Something was missing from it. The faint rattle of the wind through vents, the sea lapping against the rock. The air felt sealed. I sat up, flashlight in hand. Then I heard it, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving on the stairs above me. At first, I thought maybe a gull or seal had somehow found its way in. But the steps were too clean, too human, and they weren't coming down, they were going up. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. The steps stopped. I didn't move until dawn. When morning came, I climbed to check. The doors were locked from the inside, the windows still sealed with bolts that hadn't turned in decades. No sign of intrusion. But the maintenance closet door now stood wide open, and the box was gone. I spent the day pretending to work while keeping one eye on the stairs. I didn't hear footsteps again, but once, when I looked down the stairwell, I could swear I saw something shift. Just a flicker, like light bending wrong. I told myself it was nerves. Isolation does strange things. Around dusk, I stepped outside to get air. That's when I noticed the footprints, bare feet, adult-sized, wet. They came from the north side of the tower, circled once, then stopped right at the cliff's edge. 10, maybe 12 prints. None coming back. I checked the shoreline. No boat. No tide pool deep enough to hide one. Just a long drop into gray water. I don't remember deciding to go back inside, but I must have. I locked the hatch, dragged an iron pipe across it for good measure, and sat with the radio on my lap. My hand hovered over the transmit button more times than I'd admit. Then came the knocking. 3 knocks. Slow, solid, against the inside wall of the tower. Not the door, the wall. I aimed my flashlight, half expecting cracks or shifting metal. But there was nothing. Just the echo of those knocks sinking into the bricks like they belonged there. That was it for me. I used the radio and called for extraction. Told dispatch it was a medical issue. They said the fog was too thick, but they'd try by afternoon. The rest of the night, I sat against the generator, flashlight in one hand, wrench in the other. No sleep. Sometime around dawn, I heard movement again, this time soft, sliding. When I turned, the box was back, sitting right at the bottom of the stairs, moss dripping onto the floor. It was still nailed shut. I didn't touch it. I just watched it until the foghorn sounded outside. When the rescue boat arrived, I was waiting by the ledge, gear packed, box left exactly where it was. The deckhand who helped me aboard said, "You look like you saw a ghost." I told him the structure was unsafe and needed to be sealed permanently. He nodded like he'd heard that before. I filed my report the next morning. Structural integrity compromised. Recommend demolition. No mention of the box, or the footsteps, or the prints. It's been 2 years since that inspection. I haven't taken a field job since. My wife says I seem lighter, like I finally got tired of chasing rust and storms. She's wrong. I miss the sea sometimes, but I don't miss that silence, the kind that waits for you to notice it's there. A junior engineer called last year asking for my old notes, said the county was reconsidering restoration. I told him the files were corrupted and not worth the trouble. He laughed and said, "Maybe I'll check it out myself." I told him not to. He asked why. I said, "Because the tower's still standing, and some things stand for reasons you won't find on a blueprint." He didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, "You mean like ghosts?" I almost said yes. Instead, I told him the truth. Some structures want to be measured. Some want to be left alone.